Hi, I'm Bear Wiseman, and I feel like it's been a long time since I have gathered some geeks with me. So today I'm here with Stephen Baker, and you are known from.
I'm the singer of Frozen Factory. Hello.
I have heard that maybe you're not a big geek, but you're kind of a geek.
I would say I'm a frustrated geek. I would love to be a big giant geek, but to be honest, I don't spend enough time with other geeks. And it's amazing to be here with a collector of geeks. So I can perhaps learn a little bit about the culture, some of the things that I don't know.
Collector of geeks. I like that. Well, first thing, I feel like there's just something inherently geeky about people who really love Iron Maiden.
Yeah, for sure.
Iron Maiden has everything, and especially now, if I had done this like even 5 or 10 years ago, it's not so bad, but they've got video games. Oh, correction, they actually had a video game for like PS1 back in the day.
They had one in 1999,
Yeah,
which was called Ed Hunter.
yes. I did I get my hands on that game at some point in my life?
I totally missed it. I have to say, by the time I found out about it, it was already a few years old. And back in the day, if a video game was like 3 or 4 years old, it was already old news and no one wanted to play it anymore.
Yeah, you'd get lucky if you'd find it in some like used anything store.
Yeah, in the sale bucket somewhere, looking not very desirable. But
I used to work at an EB Games, which is like North American GameStop, I think, and I might have found that in the used bucket back when they had it for like retro games for a while, but I don't think if I had it, I ever played it. It was just in my collection, which is a shame. I don't know if it was good or not.
Yeah, I don't know either. I heard from some people that it was fun enough, but I believe it was actually like the idea was created back then when Blaze Bayley was in the band.
That makes sense.
And I don't think it was a particularly popular era for the band. Although when it was released, I think Bruce was back already. But I think the whole thing kind of got buried under the radar because, Bruce and Adrian coming back, that was the big news.
Yeah.
And the game, maybe not so much.
That's fair. Well, and like we've got our good friends like this. We've got, I think even I was a big McFarlane action figure collector back in the day. I liked the way the action figures were designed and sculpted. They were really detailed. So when he did Eddie, he did top-notch Eddie. But it always bugged me that those Eddies didn't have the hair.
Yeah, this is a beautiful one.
I actually don't remember if this was made by McFarlane. I think it was not. The art? Asyluming? Yeah, no, I don't actually remember who made this, Eddie, but he did he's supposed to be the one from The Number of the Beast, and
yeah, okay.
He does have the devil. This guy has come with me everywhere. I haven't brought the devil with me.
Like in the puppeteering position there.
I think the devil might be in Canada still. I think I broke his pitchfork at some point. So. But also, the thing is just covered in pubic hair.
Yeah.
Just somehow this thing's designed and it's just all pubic hair all down the legs. And I always just found the thing really funny.
It's kind of creepy somehow.
A little bit. I guess it's the devil that he's supposed to be.
Yeah, of course. You should feel a bit uncomfortable around the devil for whatever reason, whether it's pubic hair or the evil or
whatever it is.
Well, you broke his pitchfork, so
I did. That's probably why he was so mad.
I have to say, one thing I don't have is an Eddie action figure.
Yeah, that's a shame. Everyone should have an Eddie somewhere.
This is one of my missing geek elements, is action figures. When I was a kid, I had a few, but not so much later in life. I had hold on just a second, because I need to think how is it said. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Very
not
good.
Teenage Mutant
Turtle Ninjas?
Hero Turtles. There was a different name in Britain.
Was
I don't know if you knew that.
I
But
did
they're-
not.
Technically, they're Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But in Britain, I think they were called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles because it wasn't allowed to call them ninja.
What?
Yeah, so my brain's a little bit messed up with that one because I believe when I was first introduced to them, they were Hero Turtles.
That's wild. Because there's the whole Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme song and everything.
Yeah, and they
so
changed the word in the song.
wild. Now that's a deep cut. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's strange because just saying, but generally in Britain we joke quite a lot about how in America there's a lot of censorship and things tend to get, like banned or whatever for sometimes comical reasons.
Mm.
And actually in that case, this seems to be completely unreasonable. Britain just wouldn't allow them to be Ninja Turtles. They had to be Hero Turtles.
So what was being a ninja a bad thing?
I don't know because I remember that the action figures they came with all the
Yeah,
weapons.
they got like
and everything.
scythes and katanas and
Yeah,
stuff, right?
as far as I remember, and there wasn't any censorship to the visuals, like in the cartoon, for example. They did all the same things, but they were Hero Turtles instead of Ninja Turtles.
This is going to be one of those things that I go home and Google for like 3 hours because I'm just, what was it like? Because they're ninjas, that's an association with assassins, or
I really don't know, and I hope I got this correct because I just realized when I was thinking of the name that I know there's a difference between what I remember and what was generally accepted. And as far as I remember, back in those days, early 90s, when I was a kid, they were Hero Turtles, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles.
Interesting.
Yeah, but nowadays I think of them more as Ninja Turtles because I've heard that again and again, in later life.
Were you much of a fan of these Hero Turtles?
Well, back in the day, yeah, I mean, it was a fad,
Yeah.
if we're honest. But I remember having the action figures and watching the movies, for example.
It's funny, I remember liking Ninja Turtles. I remember the cartoon. I remember the girl in the horrible yellow jumpsuit that was horrible even in the 90s.
Yeah. April.
Yes,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
I don't know why I kept thinking her name was Lola for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know.
But April O'Neil?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was.
But I never had the action figures. My cousins had all the action figures. So I don't know if they were too boy. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's.
Or maybe it was because my
especially
brothers
back
didn't
in the
like them.
day. I mean, even in the 90s, it was so divided. This is meant for boys, this is meant for girls. So I remember that was tricky stuff, and of course it's still a bit like that today, but
Yeah.
even more so then.
I think in episode 4 I already have ranted about how Lego changed into like curvy forms to appeal to girls, and I absolutely lost my mind. I went into a blind rage. I was like, I was a little girl and I didn't need my figures to be curvy to like them. And I was so angry. I'm still angry, I'm not gonna lie, but I don't rant about it anymore.
Yeah, I can see that. It shouldn't necessarily have to change, just
they had lady figures, they had hairdos and little lipsticks and stuff. That was all I needed. They might have even had little like boobs drawn on.
Yeah.
Like I didn't need them to be like, oh, girlfriends and ponies.
Specific shapes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
I was a tomboy as a kid, so everything like all this geeky stuff all came filtered through my older brothers. So like that's probably the reason I was a geek, is because whenever my mom wanted to get me into something, she'd just be like, your brothers did it, and I would be like, okay, I will read the Chronicles of Narnia and Tolkien and play video games. And then she was like, wait, video games? No, don't get into that. And then I went too nerdy, and then she's, oh no.
I'm trying to pull you back a little bit.
Yeah, okay, wait, no. Now you need to like go do something with your life instead of being a nerd. Go study music or take up a sport or something. No, video games, only video games.
Yeah, that's troublesome, isn't it? I think a lot of people, parents, take that attitude that when you get into geeky or nerdy things, that you're like wasting your life because they maybe don't see the appeal or like where does this passion come from and what does it give you. But I don't know, I don't meet a lot of geeks or nerds in later life who have anything really like missing. They're usually quite happy people and like they have a lot of interests, and that's not a bad way to be, in my opinion. I think that a lot of parents, this is maybe the wrong thing to say, but I think that they're barking up the wrong tree with that. They're getting it wrong most of the time.
I think that was definitely a very generational problem with that kind of boomer era who were like, get a haircut and get a real job,
Yeah, so, get outside and climb a tree.
Yeah. Which is good, I grew up outdoors. I love the outdoors. I'm a nature geek as much as I am a geek, but I do appreciate, that we nerds who didn't necessarily have a lot of friends per se had something to do to make us happy when we were young. So I didn't have friends. I came home and wrote fantasy stories.
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore. I have a few friends now. I haven't ever finished my novel that I started writing in 2008.
Yeah, but yeah, it's totally healthy, at least in my opinion. That, for example, if you are living that kind of life when you're a kid, that you like to be alone sometimes, or even if it's because friends are not necessarily available for whatever reason, that if you have something of your own that you can be passionate about on your own, there's nothing wrong with that, is there?
Oh yeah.
And like you can get these friends later in life and everything, because I think often the worry is that, okay, if you're spending a lot of time alone, that's going to be forever.
Yeah.
And you're going to like die alone and all this. But it doesn't really go that way, I think.
Especially in school. School is kind of the weirdest time to think that your nerdy kid's in trouble, because now your nerdy kid in school is just surviving the most annoying part of their youth. Like, same with me. Like, as soon as I got out of high school, I made friends instantly because I was this cool nerdy girl who liked all the cool stuff that no other girl liked, which was problematic in its own way in the 90s and 2000s, of course. Not the 90s, I was still a kid in the 90s. No, I agree. And I think like these nerdy endeavors should really be pursued, because a lot of the time I've noticed, especially in Finland, the geeks are also the musicians. They'd play D&D and they'd play guitar or something like that. So, and that's honestly why I like living here, is because even, admittedly, I said I made friends when I was older, Canada is just not the place for a geek or a metalhead.
Sure.
Everyone there is kind of a hillbilly, at least where I'm from, and everyone listens to country music and, I don't know, works on the oil rigs and
and probably rejects
jerks.
Sure. I can imagine that. I think, without wanting to generalize too much, there's some of that going on in Britain as well, like where I'm originally from. It's not maybe so easy to be a geek or even a musician or whatever. If you have a passion about something, you are likely to be a target for people who maybe don't have something like that in their life, who are a bit more like the average kind of in terms of their interests and stuff. So when you stick out, then that's not always a positive thing. But I love that also about Finland, that I have found that people here really accept almost anyone in a way. Like, it doesn't really matter what your culture is, your personal culture or your like overall culture. It doesn't seem to matter. If you're just like kind, it's enough, and people are just willing to listen to you or just to bring you into stuff. Like, they don't need to criticize you or push you out, whatever. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I moved here it was April 2009, and I remember I'd been here for a couple weeks. I had no friends. I didn't know a single person when I moved here. And just something about it felt like home in a way that nowhere else I'd ever been had felt like, and nowhere else has felt since. So I was laying on, I lived on an island when I first moved here. I had to row to get home at night. And there's this nice little like slope, and the people I lived with, I was an au pair, they lived in like an old mökki that someone rented out as a house. And it was really cool. They were artists, so it was a great place for them. And they had a little boy, and I had finished up my work for the day, and there was the snow had just melted enough that like the grass was dry finally, and there's this gorgeous sunset across the Baltic Sound.
Yep.
And I was laying down and I thought, I am lonelier than I've ever been in my life. And yet I feel content in a way I've never felt before. And I think it had something to do with being on this blissfully peaceful island, yet 30 minutes, including the rowing time, would get me to the city center. And it just felt right. And then I started meeting people. A fellow who was actually your predecessor in another band was the first person I met in this country. Mark Taylor.
Taylor, yeah.
Shout out. David would be his middle name.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Mark David Taylor. Yeah, Mark Taylor. Yes.
So, hi, Mark. I assume you'll watch this.
Hello, Mark.
And yeah, big Iron Maiden geek, and big. I mean, that guy watches all sorts of stuff, like nerdy stuff, British TV and all those things. He likes his sci-fi, he likes all that stuff. Met him, started meeting some other Finnish people, and I realized, man, everyone in this country is just a little bit of a geek, and I kind of like it. It's so easy to find people to talk to things about. And you look around the musicians and you start getting these little like notes of like, man, that guy was a geek. I keep referring back to episode 4. Maybe that's because I was actually just editing it today, but they mentioned that oh sorry, it wasn't episode 4, it was episode 2. He mentions that Aleksi Laiho was kind of a geek in his youth, and if you listen to old albums like Follow the Reaper, there's some kind of like video gamey sounds in there. And I admit that I recorded that a few years ago now, and I haven't gone back and checked it out, probably because I forgot to, but it's still on my to-do list to go listen to old Bodom and see if I can find the gamer references in the riffing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, really a shame that he's not with us anymore. Who were you interviewing then?
That was Philippe from Frosttide. He's a big action figure collector. So we had a good talk about all the action figures.
I have to check that out, Frosttide.
Yeah, I believe they're on hiatus at the moment, but they do a very cinematic kind of folk metal, melodic death folk metal. Genres are hard these days.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But I've been searching for a genre for Frozen Factory, like trying to pin down what could we be.
Yeah, I couldn't pin you guys down.
I can't either.
I tried when I listened to the album, and I like it. I don't know what genre this is.
Yeah, we don't know what we are. Yeah, it's kind of troublesome actually, because of course it's great to have a genre. It helps to communicate with people, describe what you have so they can have some expectations. But never mind.
Yeah. So it's getting to be a little too specific, because you've got like melodic death folk pagan cinematic operatic whatever,
thousands and thousands of different
it's getting too niche now.
But then when you don't fit one of those thousands, you start to worry that what am I doing?
Lots of bands are just inventing their own genre name nowadays. So
we used to have one, because I used to be, or I am still, the singer of Eon Antenna. Let's clear this up, because maybe there's some people listening who listen to that band, because apparently you know the band through Mark, and you've listened to the band, and it is on hiatus. We have done nothing for ages, but I believe there will be some new music at some point. And
that's good to know.
We had our own genre, and it was called Purple Rock Pickle. Yes.
All right.
Yeah. And, since this is a geek podcast, the geekiest band I've ever had in my life was Eon Antenna. And that is maybe one reason why I've never been able to let it go. Even though we haven't done anything, we've always kept this string that maybe one day we'll do it again. And it does appeal to this geek side of us. And yeah, purple rock pickle, it came from the fact that, you know, black is the typical rock color. Okay. For obvious reasons, everyone knows why, but we always felt that we're not a black rock band in that sense. Like the black t-shirts or trousers or whatever didn't suit to us because the music was so geeky and silly. So it couldn't have that. But we felt like purple was the perfect thing because it's just like a little bit off, you know, towards the, like we're coming away from black, we're getting a little bit lighter, but still it's kind of a mysterious color. It's a bit dorky. It's, you know, it's somehow suited to the slightly psychedelic and silly aspects of our music. So that was our color. And then the pickle thing was again this genre problem. We couldn't figure out what the hell it is we're playing because it was like a mixture of prog and psychedelic metal, lounge music, for example. There was all kinds of stuff, all kinds of weird things going on in that band. Jazz.
I remember one of like my friends who, let's be fair, is kind of a dick. But he called Aeon Antenna one time 3 hippies and a metal guy or something back when Mark was singing.
Sure, yeah. That makes sense because yeah, I mean, Mark, if you're listening, all respect. I think that, you know, Mark's direction might have been a bit more like heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And that's natural for him. So I kind of get that description. And then,
well, Mark's always, you know, he should be in here talking about Iron Maiden with us right now.
Yeah, it would be great. I'm sure in spirit somehow.
Yes. that's actually how we even met too, is he was singing Iron Maiden at karaoke.
Yeah. Did he put you on his shoulders? Because I know that's like
yeah. I don't think I was the first, but I think I might have been the most legendary.
Really?
Totem poles.
Wow, it's called a totem pole. I didn't know that. Wow, that's something new.
I think we called it the totem pole. I don't know, but we were doing I was on his shoulders doing the Eddie, right?
Because I mean, I don't know him so much. He was my predecessor in the band, and I met him like once or twice, and I've talked to him a little bit online. But the one thing that I do know is that he puts, I guess, women on his shoulders, but maybe guys as well. I've seen a bunch of pictures of like girls usually on his shoulders riding.
I assume we're usually a little smaller, but I think he's maybe done a couple guys in his time as well.
I guess he probably has.
I have been known to do the inverse, so I will be the bottom of the totem every once in a while. Okay. The thing is that I shouldn't do this anymore because I had really bad whiplash in 2009, and my body has been kind of mangled ever since. But I'm also like, I used to be a CrossFit coach. You'd never tell because I'm a little chunky these days, but I don't know if I was ever like into fitness enough to make like a really dedicated coach. But I am a solid little person. So like, as long as you have some help getting up there, I can put people on my shoulders and I can hold about 175 kilos, no problem, on the shoulders. So
I'm impressed.
I've had some of my big hefty guy friends like on my shoulders at festivals. They need help getting up, and it's usually good to have someone there to like hold on to them while they're there, but the weight itself I can handle easily, no problem.
So if I ever need to shift anything difficult, I can call you.
Yes, but just make sure I've been to see an osteopath like within a week before, because there's something about like being super flexible and having had whiplash that means like my bones like to swim around in my body. Like at the end of last year, my tailbone just decided it was going to go on a hero's journey up and replace my neck bones. So I couldn't use my left leg for like 3 months. It was weird. Like my whole pelvis had tilted and shifted down and over, and my leg just stopped bending and moving. It was wild. But so this is why you don't see me with people on my shoulders a lot. But
it sounds wise to maybe not
Even just the other day, I was at this big Battle Beast Enziferum Kiowas show, and I also just bought a new fancy pillow. And I'm like, oh man, is my neck is so sore. Is this a crappy pillow? Is it making my neck sore? And then I thought, nah, dude, you were just rocking out at that show. And it's just I headbang so little that I think just doing it a little bit at this show was too much, and now I'm like so sore.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Osteopaths. I truly recommend them if you've messed up your bones. Go see one. Because doctors are not going to help you.
That's one problem I get from video games. This my neck
Neck
feels
hunch.
awful. Yeah, but these days I'm not, because when I was a kid, I was like this all the time.
Oh no.
I couldn't like contain my excitement. I had to have like a certain,
Edge of the seat.
tense position. Whereas these days, I think I have lost that a bit, so the neck problem is not so bad.
That's good.
I can like kind of chill and play and not get all the tension and get like overexcited.
I think bone pain is the reason why I don't do as much video gaming as I'd like these days, because I can't sit for 20 straight hours anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I know what you mean. Like my problem is I probably could try that, but life changes, and these days I have a family, and the 20-hour session just would never work. So even an hour can be tough sometimes, to be honest. So I used to play, for example, some RPGs back in the day. Like my favorite of all time was Final Fantasy VII, which is probably many people's
Classic.
favorite game.
Probably the most popular Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I would say so. When you look at cosplayers and so on, you can see that. I mean, these characters, they're iconic.
A lot of the like really iconic moments, because I think that was the first one where a main character died as well. It was the first 3D one. Sephiroth was just a great bad guy.
Yeah.
But
and the music was
great music.
unbelievable.
Have you played the remake?
I haven't, no. I was disappointed to hear that it's not complete. It kind of finishes somewhere in the middle of the story, isn't it? So
yeah, it's episodic. So it's
Yeah.
like part one of, I don't know, 4 maybe.
Yeah, but hasn't it been out for many years already?
The first one has, and I don't know if there's even been any word on the second one.
Yeah.
I didn't finish it. I think I got it when it was on a good discount for like 20 or 30 bucks. But we tried to play it, and I have to say, like, a lot of it I really liked. Like, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
I loved the world and the way you interacted with it. Like, the NPCs in the world felt more organic than they've ever felt in a Final Fantasy game before. Like, people will talk as you walk by, but they won't be like, hi, I've just gone to the store.
Yeah.
I have 3 pickles in my pocket. Like, they'll just talk organically like people would.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not weird anymore, but
yeah. That takes a little of the humor away, perhaps, does it?
Maybe. I like the world a lot, but I think, again, this is maybe a chronic problem with me with Final Fantasy games, but the battle system I just couldn't really get into. Like, I think, I don't know if they've just really tried hard to steer away from a direct turn-based system, and I understand probably why, but I thought they did a great job with Final Fantasy X with the turn-based system.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't stick with that, because Final Fantasy XII got, like, again, I never finished Final Fantasy XII because I think the system got a little complicated.
I think I'm going to be honest here. I've been playing one recently on my Switch. I think it's 12. I'm not 100% sure now because I kind of lost like the plot at some point.
Is that the one with Vaughn as the main character?
I haven't picked it up in a couple of months, so I'm not really sure. But the system was kind of weird because there wasn't like a battle situation as such. The like enemies were just kind of crawling around. You could see them all the time, and then you'd kind of like run around them. And I don't know, it was really odd to me because I'm more used to this kind of turn-based system, and I was expecting that, and I couldn't so far really get into this thing. It was either 12 or then a bit later, like
13 was still a console game? I'm trying to think.
Could it be even as much as
11
like 17 or something? I'm so bad with the.
I'm trying to, 11 was the first online one, I think. 'Cause there's 10, 11 was online, 12, 13 was the one that starred lightning. I never played that one. 14 is also online, and then, or is 14 the one that I refer to as Final Fantasy Entourage?
I believe I played Final Fantasy 14 on PlayStation
That's the
3.
road trip one.
Yeah,
And then there's
that's the
15.
one that broke my PS3, I think. Final
Really?
Fantasy 14. I seem to remember it was either like the numbers just get so crazy for me. Somewhere around 13, 14. I had the original PlayStation 3. I bought it in 2007, I think.
So
Ish.
real original.
Yeah, it was on the launch day. I had pre-ordered
Oh,
it,
damn.
so it got delivered to my door in the UK. I think in 2007, whenever that thing came out. I don't remember anymore, 6 or 7. And it came to the door. I was super excited, obviously, and I played the thing. And then I ended up bringing it here to Finland. And then I think I had it in Finland for 2 months, something like that. And I was playing this Final Fantasy game, and I played it really a lot. I didn't have any kids at that point. I didn't have anything really taking my time, so I was playing a lot of that. And yeah, it just overheated and it died. And it had this kind of like a flashing red light of death or something. This is a while back, so I'm not exactly sure what the thing was. But when I looked it up online, it's like, yeah, it's bricked. That's it. It had a problem where it overheated, and then the soldering around the processor just like it kind of came up, yeah, melted, and the processor like detached itself from the motherboard. So after that, of course, it doesn't work. And it had this kind of special, was it like quad core? What do they call it? They had some special name for that now. It's a really special processor in the PS3. So yeah, I mean, it made a lot of heat, and Final Fantasy was just too much for it.
Damn.
Yeah, I was sad when that happened because it was cool. The original one had this like little lift up thing on the front where you had like the USB ports and like an SD card port as well. So maybe some other little goodies in there. It was nice, and it had an emulator on it as well, which the later ones didn't, because you could actually put PS1 and PS2 discs into the PS3 and it would play them. It was awesome, and it was a hardware emulator, so it was actually good.
Trying to think, I do have a PS2 SingStar disc, and I never had a PS2 in Finland, so that must have been playable on my PS3.
Yeah, if you had one of the original ones, it would have done it. And then later, when they replaced that original style one with the slightly more compact model, they took away all of the emulation stuff, and they just said that, well, no one wants it anyway.
That's so funny because like nowadays the like PSN and the archives are like so huge.
Yeah.
PlayStation was like, no one wants to play the old games, they only want to play new games. Well, sure, executives.
Yeah, I suppose they realized when everyone complained that, what the hell are you doing? We want to play the old games.
But they didn't do it again, like with the next system, like the PS4, I think, was never backwards compatible.
No.
But the PS4 did have the PSN, so I guess it.
Yeah, they probably realized they could make more money by, making the games available to download or whatever.
But then they did something shady too, because I'm pretty sure the games that I bought on the PSN for the PS3, I had to repurchase on the PSN for the PS4. Like,
that sucks.
I'm trying to think. There's some, and then some things that were on the PSN for PS3, like Dragon Age, the original one, and I think Dragon Age 2, have somehow never become available on the PS4 PSN. I have no idea why. It's very weird to me. I've played Dragon Age original so many times. Is it called Origins? I don't remember. But
I've never played that game.
It's very fun. I like it a lot. I don't know, it's maybe a little old by now, but
the old games are fine for me though. I don't see the difference anymore. At some point it just changed, because when I was young it was all about the next generation
Mm,
all the time. And even when you're playing the current generation, all you could think about was the next generation.
yeah.
When you start to see in the magazines, like I remember when I had my original PlayStation, this is when I really got that hunger for the next ones.
Mm,
And when they started to talk about PlayStation 2, and they would have like mock-up images or concept images of what it might look like
mm.
and what features it might have, which is all bullshit because it wasn't coming from any official source. It was just someone in the magazine was just making it up.
Mm.
But like I was lapping it up. Oh my God, would it be like that? Could it be like that? Can't wait to get the next one. But still enjoying, you know.
Yeah. Oh, and there's something to be said for those old games, like the old Resident Evil games on, was it like PS1? Like part of the reason they're so scary is because the rendering was not that good. So instead of having like beautiful, crisp, pristine visuals, you'd have this like hazy, shady,
Yeah,
weird stuff, and then stuff would pop out of it and you'd shit yourself.
yeah.
Sometimes the old stuff's just great the way it is. Doesn't need updating.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I have to admit, I don't know, is this bad to say this since I get like now when it's recorded, but I have one of these Raspberry Pi like mini computers, and it has a bunch of emulation software on it. So even though somewhere I own like a PlayStation and a PlayStation 2, I think they're still in Britain somewhere in an attic. But all these old games I used to have, and some I never bought, but you know, have now downloaded. They live on there. So I think everything up to like a PlayStation 1 basically is okay to play on this thing. And if I'm honest, I would love to have some PlayStation 2 games, but actually that console is a bit of a blip for me. I didn't enjoy the PlayStation 2 that much.
Interesting. It had the first 3D Castlevania game. No, I guess they weren't the first ones because Nintendo 64 I think had some. But they were the first good maybe 3D Castlevania games. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. But I remember like I think I had a boyfriend in I want to say 2004 or 5 who like called me up and was like my roommate and I got this new Castlevania game, and we can't leave the first level because the music's so beautiful that all we want to do is run around this level. So I went over and I started playing it. I was just like, whoa.
Okay, I missed that, so maybe that would have helped.
Mm.
I think maybe my favorite memory from PS2, I believe it was PS2. I might be mixing up now with PS3. Apologies if I am, but God of War wasn't the first one on PS2.
I think the first one was on PS2.
Yeah, I believe so too. And I remember that was fantastic.
I think that one had like really great feedback for being like a video game interpretation essentially of a Greek tragedy. Like it was an original story for sure, but like the way the story followed was apparently like done in like perfect Greek tragedy form. That's why a lot of people were really annoyed that they kept going afterwards because anything they did after kind of ruined this like vibe that they had put out in the first one of this dude's story. But I think I've heard they've got a few new games. The one that I called Dad of War, and then there's another one. So I haven't played them, but I think I've heard that they were all right.
Yeah, I don't think I've played anything after the second game.
How was it?
Probably really good, but it seems like a long time ago now.
Did you ever try like the Devil May Cry games? I feel like they were around. I don't know if they go back as far as PS1, but I think they were for sure PS2.
I never owned one. I think I might have played a demo at some point back in the days when demos were useful or like desired, because I used to get these magazines when I was younger, PlayStation magazine probably, and it always had a demo disc on the front.
Oh, nice.
And I would play those generally, like pretty much all the demos, unless something was clearly, you know, nothing that I'm interested
Super Barbie special.
Or, well, I might have given that a go. Why not?
Why not?
I don't think they ever did. I never gave up hope, but
I do remember, I don't even know how we got our hands on this because I don't think either of us ever subscribed to Nintendo Power, but at some point we had a VHS trailer for Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh, wow.
And it was truly one of the most ludicrously over-the-top things I've ever seen. Very, very directed at children.
Yeah.
And my cousin and I watched this thing, which was maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes long, just a trailer for this video game over and over and over in anticipation of this game. And then when we had the game and we would get stuck, we would have to go and watch this like demo to see if is there a shot of this scene so that we can get some hint of what we're supposed to do here. And I think I managed to rediscover this trailer as an adult, and it's really wild how over the top it's just like oh, like really intense.
Yeah, was that on the N64?
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course it would be a VHS because they wouldn't make demo cartridges.
Yeah.
Because that would be crazy expensive.
Yeah. So it was
VHS,
just a trailer.
Yeah, amazing.
A game trailer, but you could only ever see it if you somehow got this VHS. I'd love to go back in time and figure out how this came into my possession, because I don't, maybe I found it at like the used game store or something. I have no idea.
It's funny when you say it because I think there might have been some magazines, for example, giving these. And
I think Nintendo Power was one of them.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think, like, I've never subscribed to a magazine in my life, so
just fell into your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, I seem to remember back in the day looking through newsagents and seeing magazines with VHSs, but that's something I would never have remembered had you not mentioned it. But that's crazy to think nowadays.
Yeah, you'd get like a magazine with a whole honkin' VHS tape like in the plastic on the front.
It's crazy.
The things we did in the 90s.
Yeah. Imagine transporting that and everything, you know, all these magazines with giant VHSs on the front.
Yeah. Wonder how lucrative that was for Nintendo to have to pay for all that shipping.
Yeah.
Was it a really expensive magazine? I don't know. Again, I don't think I ever was subscribed to it.
I just get visions of, you know, this people trying to deliver them through the letterboxes and things.
Clunk, clunk, clunk. Ding dong. Just have your Nintendo Power on your front porch because someone gave up.
Kid inside, you know, like, oh my god, it's here, ripping the VHS off the front and putting it in with the sellotape still attached to it, busting the machine. I don't know. Gone are those days. Magical days.
Nostalgia. But
yeah, some of these physical things though, I kind of miss them in a way because everything's downloads these days, and you know, if you want a demo of something, you just go through this kind of really boring process of logging into the store and online store and then choosing the thing, you know, searching for it and watching the download counter kind of tick away. And I don't know, there's no magic in that. The experience is not so cool, and I know that a lot of people feel that about music as well these days, that the online thing has kind of taken away some of the real magic of holding something in your hands and receiving it from a special place like a record store.
I honestly, I'm so bad. Like, I miss getting mail. Like, I never got mail as a kid. I was too young to get mail. And by the time I was old enough to get mail, I got emails. So, like, my nostalgia is, like, I like when people send me, like, a long email about what's going on in their life, because to me, that's like getting a letter. And I get really excited. Nowadays, everyone's just texting and stuff. And
Yeah.
But it's the same kind of thing, you know. As annoying as it was to be, like, on your cartridges all the time, there was something to that. And there's one good example I can think of. When they remade Majora's Mask, Legend of Zelda, for the 3DS, they cut a lot of the things that people complained about. So there's this one character who's like a Deku scrub who, there's like 4 of them throughout the world, and you have to buy the deed to their spot and then sell it to the next one. And then they move around. And every time one of these dudes gets up and leaves, there was like a 10-second animation. It was so long. And you'd just be sitting there like, I have 3 days game time. Why do I have to watch this every time? And of course, you have to keep going back in time, so you might keep redoing this quest. And they cut that in the remake, and I found myself really sad. I was like, somehow like, hey, this is where I was supposed to like take a bite from my sandwich. What? It's gone now. But the potential for nerd rage is just endless. So
Yeah,
if you want a nerd rage, you're always gonna find a reason to do it.
that's something that I've always been a bit missing. I must admit that's maybe one thing from me that I feel that, like, do I really reach the level of nerd or geek? Because I don't get that upset about certain things. I noticed that a lot of the other like geeks and nerds that I hang around with, their passion goes to this level that if something's not quite right or something like is unexpected or whatever, you're into it so much that when it's not right, it's really annoying. But that's also, I don't know, I'm kind of like dead inside in this way. Like, don't take that the wrong way. I care about stuff and I'm like, I feel emotions and things like that. But when it comes to like try to annoy me, it's not easy.
One of my friends recently said that, like, for sure there's enough hate in this world without us just hating things for the sake of hating things. But she said like she had some like insight into allowing something to be bad and that being okay. And I think the example was the Rings of Power, this new Lord of the Rings series.
Sure, yeah.
Which has been pretty universally bashed.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah, I haven't watched it because I heard that it's not the best.
If you like to watch something just to laugh at how terrible it is,
then you recommend
it was bad. It was shamefully bad. But
yeah,
it's fascinating to see like how people get annoyed by it, because some people absolutely like the polarization between whether people were okay with Galadriel or not. Like, some people were like, heinous Mary Sue bitch, completely unlikable, is rude to everyone she meets, including her best friends and people she's trying to get to help her. Versus like, well, if you imagine her as being someone, again, I think this is, I'm not going to quote this as my own, because this is something my friend said, but she said, imagine this as like a woman who's maybe even like neurodivergent, possibly like even like on the autism spectrum or something like that. Everyone she knows and loves has told her that she's crazy, she needs therapy and a nap, and she just like, no, damn you, no one supports me for hundreds of years. And so just like kind of like a depressed neurodivergent of some sort person who's just like had too many cups of coffee and not enough sleep for centuries. And then maybe her being a crazy bitch isn't actually so unreasonable to think about. But personally, I'm not a really big fan of having to do insane mental acrobatics to justify a character behaving the way they do. So, but like a lot of also just people being disappointed, like the Tolkien scholars were just disappointed that they had all this like incredible lore that they didn't even explore the way they could have. So
yeah.
There's so many things that they could have done well and they kind of just didn't.
Yeah, I kind of heard about that people weren't happy with the details.
Yeah.
But I don't know enough about it personally to really judge on that. And to be honest,
enjoyable in that case.
Maybe, but it was on Amazon as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They're kind of a bunch of bastards, so I'm kind of happy that it failed for them, to be honest.
Yeah, I wish it would have failed financially for them more, but I guess that's it. When you take a franchise that big and popular, then whatever you do with it, people will still check it out. So even though I hated it, I was committed to watching the entire thing.
Yeah, they knew about it. Hey, that reminds me, because I think there's a bit of a similar situation going on with Iron Maiden. this year with their tour.
Really?
Yeah, I believe so, because you mentioned that sometimes when you dangle this kind of carrot in front of people and they can't resist. And I think they're doing that. This is my opinion, of course. This is not fact, but this tour that's coming up this year, which is partly the Senjutsu tour, and then it is also the Somewhere in Time tour. I can't remember what they called it now exactly, but they're going to play some songs from the Somewhere in Time album, and the fans have been waiting for that forever. You know, and they have. I feel that they have kind of kept this, and this is just me being cynical, but
I feel like I know where you're going.
I didn't like that last album at all.
So they're dangling somewhere in time to get people to come to the Senjutsu tour.
Like, in my opinion, I think they might be doing that. And I know that there's a lot of people who like the album, apparently, because I haven't met anyone yet who likes it. Like, honestly, like face to face, I haven't met anyone who says they like it. But of course, and like, this is where I feel that, okay, I am a geek with Iron Maiden, because they can actually like get inside me and piss me off when they do something I don't like. And in this case, when I didn't like the album, I had to check some other opinions. Like, I had to read what other people were posting online.
Didn't miss something obvious.
Yeah, in a way, like, is it really that bad? Did something happen to me that, you know, kind of, am I having a bad year or something? Whatever. So then I read some opinions, and some people apparently really loved it. I mean, I read some people say it's their best since Seventh Son. A couple of people were saying, well, maybe this is the best they've ever done. They're sounding like the best they ever have. And
Are those thinking, written by Steve Harris's best friend?
Or himself? Did he pay people? You know, I mean, Iron Maiden's, Iron Maiden's a huge machine. I mean, in terms of marketing. Maybe they have these little, you know, like troll stations around the world that
you never know.
Post these positive reviews of their new and terrible music. That was probably not that fair to say, new and terrible music, but anyway, it wasn't my cup of tea, let's say. And you know, the other people I have met have said that also they didn't really like it. And yeah, I think this next tour, suddenly they're playing songs from Somewhere in Time.
Is it even an anniversary for that album?
No, it came out in 1986. So
Boo.
No.
Boo.
Yeah. So it, you know,
I buy that conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I've been involved in the past in the kind of online communities for Iron Maiden. And obviously, like, as life goes on, you get less and less time for that kind of thing. But going back some years, I know that people were demanding to hear those songs live, you know, and it was a constant thing. Loads of fans love Somewhere in Time. It's an amazing album, and they have generally kind of avoided those songs live. They've done few of them, like Heaven Can Wait. They've done fairly often, and then recently they've been playing Wasted Years. What else have they done from there? I don't think really anything. You know, there's a lot of great songs that they just simply haven't done, like Stranger in a Strange Land. I don't think they've played that since '99 or something. And actually they, I think, stopped playing it at some point for a really weird reason. I think because Adrian is the guy who plays the solo in that, and I think they felt no one else can do it. And he was there on tour with them in '99 because he'd come back to the band. But then, if I remember correctly, unfortunately, his father died during the tour, and he had to go away.
Check out, yeah.
So they were somewhere in the United States or something like that, and he had to fly back to England to go to the funeral, I guess. So then they were left with Dave and Yannick, and they didn't have Adrian, and they dropped Stranger in a Strange Land from the set whilst Adrian was away for a few nights. And then when he came back, they just didn't continue with it for whatever reason. So there has been these kind of weird stories over the years that, you know, these songs, they're in the set and then they're not, or they've talked about it. You know, someone in the band has revealed that when we were rehearsing, we were doing that song, but then when we got on stage, started the tour, it was dropped or whatever. And there's the classic Alexander the Great,
Yeah.
which is the epic at the end of Somewhere in Time. They've never played it live. And there's a whole bunch of rumors as to why. And the only thing that has ever happened is that Bruce teases the audience in Greece every now and then by singing like a few of the lines. And then everyone starts to say, oh, you know, maybe they're thinking about playing it. No, they're not. And again, now the conversation comes up, of course, because they said they're going to play something from Somewhere in Time, like 5-6 songs. Will they play Alexander the Great? Fingers crossed. I'm hoping for it because I'm going to that tour, even though I didn't like that album, and I'm only going because of Somewhere in Time, just like they wanted me to.
That's, I think this is probably going to be the first time I skip an Iron Maiden show, unless it happens to be the first time I get a press pass to an Iron Maiden show. I don't think I'm giving them my money this time. And part of that's just because I really hate that big bands have the most expensive shirts.
Yeah, that sucks.
When you're charging, like when you're Metallica or Iron Maiden or Ozzy Osbourne or whoever, and you're charging 40 fucking euros for a shirt.
Yeah.
When like the little bands are still charging 20 and 25. Like it just bugs me. Like, you guys don't need the money. You're already charging a shitload for these shows. Like, really?
Yeah.
What do you need this money for?
It becomes a cash cow.
Yeah.
In the end, doesn't it?
I mean, even
it's
just
a bit
with
sad.
the merch.
Yeah.
Like, you've got such an influx of income for your brand. You don't need to be squeezing every penny out of your fans. And that just gets like under my skin. And that's why, like, even in my music journalism, I tend to prefer to focus on smaller bands these days. I'm going to the Dream Theater show on the 2nd and the Manowar show on the 1st, and I don't want to go to either of them, but one of my friends doesn't want to go to shows alone, so he's dragging me along with him.
Yeah.
Just like,
I have a friend also who's coming to the show, and I think he was feeling a bit the same way, that when the show was announced, you know, we're not really interested. And I feel the same. I don't maybe want to give money to these guys so much anymore. But I can't now, you know, this thing. They got me. They got me. You know, and I felt so bad that day when they announced it, because I felt that I've been tricked and that I know the trick and I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I'm there at the mousetrap and I understand exactly what's going to happen, but I'm going to take that cheese, even though I know it's going to slap down on me and, you know, crush me.
Yeah.
And that's stupid.
I'm trying to think. There's got to be something that I do that for these days, but I'm not sure what it would be. I'd have to think about that. Because it would have been Iron Maiden for me for a long time. Iron Maiden was, like, frankly, they changed my life completely. Like, I was fully at that point, I would say I was maybe around, like, 13. Yeah, that number clicks with my head. I was about 13, and my brother was driving me somewhere, and I had recently been in grade 6 or something when I studied Greek mythology, and the Flight of Icarus was playing. And I was so fed up with pop music at that point because it was all love songs. It's all love songs, and I was a dorky little 13-year-old who no one ever wanted to go out with, and even if they did, my mom would not let me date till I was 16 for some pointless reason that was never explained to me.
Send in your answers.
Salt on. So throwing a little salt on my mom while I'm at it, but it wasn't just her, it was both of them. But but yeah, so like I was a little nerd. So I'm driving with my brother and I hear this, like, as the sun breaks, and this song of like this guy flying too close to the sun and stuff. This sounds like it's written about the Song of Icarus.
Yeah.
And somehow I had just heard, and before I listened to the radio and pop music, I came 100% from a background of country music because I'm from Canada, and specifically I'm from Alberta, so, which is the most hillbilly part of Canada. And, I don't think I knew it was literally possible to write a song that was not about love.
Yeah.
I had never experienced it before. So when I heard this, and I was like, this sounds like the story of Icarus, and my brother was like, the song is called The Flight of Icarus, nerd, or whatever he said to me. I was just, holy shit, you can write songs with stories?
Yeah.
Just give me all of their music now. So he like gave me his mixtape, and funnily enough, though it was Bruce that I fell in love with, The Klansman was the song that I have really specific memories of, like running around my house blasting this song over and over, and like my dad would be sitting somewhere reading a book, and I would just like run into the room and take a flying jump like Iron Man land in front of him and just be like, I am the Klansman, and then just flee from the room. And my dad would just be like, the fuck?
Yeah.
This happened a lot, I'm sure. Or like I'd be playing violin, and I think I learned to play that entire song minus the solo on the violin.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
As a kid, so I was mostly playing with Bruce, but yeah.
Works for me. I love to hear that.
I could probably still play that. I don't touch my violin almost ever anymore. Things you'll get bullied for in hillbilly Canada.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Playing an instrument that no one else plays.
I'm playing Iron Maiden on it.
I never played Iron Maiden in the talent shows that I attended for, I don't know why. It was just like, I feel like that was just like me getting on stage so people would make fun of me.
Yeah, I kind of get that. Yeah, that's a sad, inevitable moment, isn't it? It's yeah, I know what you mean.
But
School can be like that sometimes.
I was very hard to bully. People tried and they'd stop trying because I didn't react.
Yeah, you got tough.
My brothers really prepped me because my brothers were tiny also. Like, however short I am, I'm about 160 centimeters. If I showed you a picture of my brothers when they were 19, you'd probably think they were about 15. So, like, but they were twins, so there were two of them. And I think that gave them their security. Like, whatever their friend's situation was, they always had each other. So they prepped me. Yeah. They prepped me really hard. But first of all, if anyone fucks with you, you have big brothers. But also, they're going to make fun of you for being small. So just remind them that they're going to be getting carded for beer when they're 18, and they're still going to be like, they're going to stop carding those people by the time they're 20. They're still going to be carding you when you're 40. I'm 36 now. I still get carded all the time. So suck it, people who tried to make fun of me in high school.
For me, that I had a bit of that as well. Like some years ago, I looked younger than I was, and it just overnight changed. Suddenly, I started to look old or something, and it happened like one evening. I went into a bar, and I was with a group of people, and all the rest they got ID'd, and then so he was asking them all, and then he looked at me, and I was like reaching into my wallet take it, and he was like, you don't need to, you could be 50. All right.
What?
And after that I've never been ID'd again. Apparently I just woke up that day, you know, suddenly I'd aged like 20 years, and that was that.
I've heard stories of that. I had a friend who said that he was like a pristine, tiny, weeny little like emo, skinny, short. And then one day he shot up to 186 centimeter and just grew fur everywhere. It happened practically overnight. And I was like, did your bones not hurt when that happened? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think for me, it was just like maybe because, you know, my music has become quite dark these days. I write about all the kind of problems in the world, and maybe it was that moment when I started to kind of go deep. It started to show on my face or something. I don't know. It was like a kind of whoa, dude. Yeah.
Scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like I don't know. I look like some kind of journeyer or something. But yeah. Hey, I have something to show you.
Oh,
It was
excellent.
interesting that you were talking about merch, an official merch from the big bands. Because actually, back in the day, I made my own.
Oh, you have to be kidding me. Because I've done the same.
This is what I made when I was like 19, 20 years old. Something
Incredible.
like that. It's for Passchendaele,
I love
which
it.
was my favorite song
Great song.
at the time.
Instantly.
I think it's still kind of one of my favorite Iron Maiden songs, and it's signed by Nico, Steve, and Bruce,
Amazing.
and also inside, because he's not so cool, it's signed by Michael Kenny, who's their keyboard player,
Oh, nice.
or was. He used to play live with them. He only recently retired from playing with Iron Maiden. He'd been playing since the early days,
Okay.
basically. And the front is it's a replica of Bruce's denim jacket from the Brave New World tour, which he also wore in another tour after that as well. There's only one thing missing from it, which is that this part should also be black leather. And I actually had the
Okay.
pieces for it, but somehow I ended up so like busy or something. I never finished it, but I don't really care anymore. I don't think it matters. At some point, I was a bit pained that hey, I never finished it. But never mind. That's the story, you know.
That's incredible. For an art project in high school, I actually took an old pair of pants and then I like kind of cut a hole in them and then I pinned like the edges of the hole over and then I painted on like another piece of denim. I think I used the Peace of Mind Eddie face and
I
but I customized it. I gave him like a red mohawk. And then I had like his hands, so it looked like he was trying to get out of my leg.
oh cool.
And I think that was probably like I really hated my high school art teacher after the first year. He was a terrible person. But he had someone in the class when I finished this, and then I like painted Iron Maiden in like the logo down the leg and everything.
Yeah.
And this woman who was in the class, like the teacher was impressed, which was a big deal for one because we did not like each other. But this woman looked at this pair of pants and she's like, damn, you could sell those for like $200 or something.
Yeah.
And I was like 16 or something. I was like, whoa, that's actually pretty high praise from an art teacher.
Yeah.
The only thing I think, like, the reason that I didn't like them in the end was because I was mad that I painted the hands. I believed in my heart of hearts that the hands also should have been separate pieces. So
sure. Yeah.
I think I cut the painted logo off the jeans and I still have the back piece. So I could recreate these pants the way I dreamed if I was ever so inclined. But I'm happy that I actually still have the artwork from it, at least the face. So
Yeah.
that was a fun project. But I think, yeah, Iron Maiden fans, we are just absolute geeks.
Yeah, I mean, I was such a geek, especially back then, back in the day. I mean, I had so much stuff, like all the vinyl records and stuff. I was collecting them from record shops, and I had bootlegs of concerts. I was collecting those, and I was actually part of a bootleg community, which I had to go through hoops to get into. You know, I had to do all kinds of because back in the day we're doing these kind of like bootleg exchanges. So some guy in, I don't know, let's say Devon or something, would send me like an email or a letter even saying like, do you have like a Sheffield 83 or something like that show? And then, yeah, sure, I have it. Do you have like I don't know, like Milwaukee 86 or something like that? Yeah, I have that one. Okay, so let's do a swap. So I make the CD for that person, you know, of the show they wanted, and they send me one of another show that I don't have.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. So I used to get these like Jiffy bags full of CDs coming, and I would be sending them out to other people. And I had still somewhere in the UK, there's this kind of metal box that I have, which is full of these bootleg CDs on these kind of sliding things. So there's maybe like 100 or 200 or more CDs in this thing, and then DVDs as well. When we could start to, copy DVDs, I had some bootleg videos. So I had this huge collection of Iron Maiden concerts, and I would listen to them sometimes, So I've heard shows from all over the world, from all different tours, and they were
Incredible.
awesome. Some of them were amazing, and like one highlight was I don't remember the tour now, which one it was, but it was a version of 22 Acacia Avenue, and it's where Bruce changes the words to be about a cheese shop instead. Yeah, instead of a hooker, or a brothel or whatever. So that's a great one, and then you can obviously these days you can just search on YouTube, and most of these shows have been uploaded. So if you ever feel like it, and people at home listening, search for the cheese shop, 22 Acacia Avenue cheese shop version or something like that.
If I can find it, I'll link it in the description.
Yeah, please do. It's great. I mean, he's doing it just improvising. I don't know how much he thought about it, and why did he do it. I don't remember anymore. Did he say something before? Was he like pissed off or something? Because Bruce occasionally, when he's mad with someone in the audience or whatever, he does something a bit unpredictable. But yeah, that was fun back in the day with these bootlegs.
I'm trying to think what was all in my Iron Maiden collection back in the day, because I remember there was a record shop in town, and the guy there would make like prints sometimes, and he'd kind of customize them. So he'd take some sort of like, I don't know, it was maybe like this thick board, and he'd put this print on it, and then he'd use like highlighters to highlight them so that they'd glow in the dark a little bit. And I think I bought his entire collection of them, but I think when I moved to Finland, I thought like I'll show you pictures, and I'll probably link them at the end of the video too, just to show you what my room looked like when I was in high school. I had painted the walls red. I had posters on every corner of it. I had standees because, as I said, I worked at GameStop. You're not supposed to do that if you work there, by the way. You're supposed to throw them in the trash. But no one was going to do that. Come on. But I would also get them from like Walmart or HMV or like places you could get CDs. So I had like Gandalf the Grey, I had Gandalf the White, and they all had trays on them because they were.
Yeah.
And so like my room was truly like, it looked like a comic book store. Like full of like old game consoles, like a huge old TV, like dragon figurines, action figures. I had Lord of the Rings action figures all over the wall. I had all of the McFarlane Eddies. I had this guy. I had like, I think a big pint. I might still have that because my mom got it for me, and my mom didn't usually indulge my weirdness. But there were a few times that she would do it. She bought me a Harry Potter action figure once, and she bought me this Iron Maiden mug. I don't have any idea where she found it, but it was very nice. I don't remember which cover was on it, but some kind of like hefty ceramic beer stein looking kind of thing.
Those are great.
I think I had to keep my Fear of the Dark poster on the back of my door because she didn't like it. It really creeped her out, so it had to be gone when the door opened. But yeah, no, my room was a piece of work. She was, I'm sure, delighted the moment that I got out of there so she could paint over those red walls.
Yeah.
But hey, to her credit, she did paint the walls red for me, so
yeah, it's cool.
She indulged me a little, just not too much.
Yeah, there's always a balance, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, her problem was that she just didn't get it. And she didn't really put any effort into figuring it out. So, like, she could have asked. I'd have told her why I liked all this stuff, but she never asked. So she just thought I was evil. I don't know why you're into all these dark, horrible things. Why are there skulls all over your walls? Because they're cool. she liked the little like gnomes and fairies and stuff, but
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I can't speak for everyone, but it's something you have to learn, like just understanding
mm,
people, or then if you don't understand them, realizing that that's okay.
yeah,
Like, you don't have to understand everything that someone else does or likes.
yeah,
It's not really important in a way. Of course, it's nice to explore that with someone, but it shouldn't make a barrier between you just because you don't
mm,
like understand the things that
yeah,
someone does. I think I have to give credit to my parents because with the whole Iron Maiden thing, I think back like a long while back, they maybe wondered a bit like, why am I so into that?
mm,
Like, where does the passion come from? At least my dad, he had a bit kind of similar passion about Genesis
okay,
himself, but maybe not in a collector kind of sense,
mm,
and maybe not going too deep into the stories, but maybe halfway there, like what I am with Iron Maiden. And at some point, I decided, I don't know why exactly, I don't really remember anymore, but I bought them tickets to an Iron Maiden show, one that I was going to as well. At least I think I did. If they're listening and they remember it differently, that they bought the tickets, then I'm sorry. But I seem to remember that I bought the tickets for my parents, and I got them some seats somewhere in this place, and I was in the standing.
mm,
So we weren't there like together, but they were just experiencing the same show with me. And I seem to remember thinking, or that I was thinking that it would be great if they would experience it too,
mm,
because maybe then they like see why I think they're so amazing. And you know, a lot of it is about the live experience.
mm,
And that's what really sealed the deal for me when I saw them live, because I'd heard a bit of their music. Before that, of course, when I saw them live, then I was like the huge fan. And yeah, I remember that they went to the show, and I didn't see them afterwards. I think at some point we waved to each other. I saw them in their seats in this big venue, but I think they sent me a message afterwards, like SMS that pretty cool or something. You know, like we enjoyed the show, and I think they left like during the last song or something to get out before
yeah.
everyone. And yeah, I thought that was cool.
Hey, cool that they checked it out.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think I
I
was.
should send my parents to an Iron Maiden. I'll send them to go see Senjutsu.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, since you're not going, yeah, go represent. Yeah, I think it's, I really don't remember exactly what the thinking was behind that, but it's kind of nice to bring family into something you're passionate about as well. If
Yeah,
there's a way to do it.
absolutely. Well, if we come back a little bit around to the subject of geekdom, I think like one of the coolest things I see within families is like the people who share things with their kids that they love.
Mm,
Like I always had this plan that with my partner that like when we were going to have kids back in the day, like it was like our kids have to like graduate from old video games before they're allowed to play new video games. Like,
same, we did the same thing.
did you actually do it?
Yeah,
How did
that's
that
why I
go?
got, that was actually one of the first reasons why I got this Raspberry Pi,
Yeah.
this little computer, because I wanted my son to experience uh, the games in a similar way to how I did. And I guess maybe one of the reasons you were thinking about that was, or I don't know, but I was thinking that today's games, they're so like complex and so visually stunning
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of the gaming elements are like kind of hidden behind this amazing veil of like flashy,
Technology.
yeah, all kinds of like bells and whistles, as they
Mm-hmm.
say. And I wanted him to first experience the more simple
Mm.
things, and then like exactly kind of work his way up and see the history, because I don't think you can go backwards so easily.
That's exactly the reasoning. Because if you take for a really clear example, a lot of the iconic movies from the 90s that everyone loves, I have not seen. I've
Mm,
not seen a Terminator movie, not seen an Aliens movie. I have not seen Back to the Future or Ghostbusters. I've probably seen the entirety of the movies, but I've never watched them
mm,
straight through. And I genuinely think like when I do watch a lot of these movies nowadays, I'm either like the 90s were too bro, I'm too woke or something. Like I can't enjoy them the way I would have if I had seen them when they were new. And so that was the exact idea I had, was that I wanted my kids to be able to enjoy retro gaming without like needing to be hyper stimulated by like all of this tech magnificence all the time. And I didn't want them to like not be able to appreciate bit art or chip tunes or things like that. So that was 100% my reasoning.
Yeah, and I think it worked with our son, because when he came into these games, he didn't have prior knowledge of these more advanced things. So he was amazed by these old games. To him, it was a totally new thing to interact with a game. And he was totally happy with those. And gradually we introduced a bit more modern stuff. And now he's happy to play anything, whether it's retro or new, he doesn't care. And who knows how it would have gone if it would have been the other way around. But I totally suspect that this kind of overstimulating modern style would have ruined the retro stuff for him, because how could you go back? I mean, I think that you would immediately just look at it and feel like, no, I'm not even
I can't even like, look at Final Fantasy VII Remake and then try and go back and play Final Fantasy VII when it's basically like chunky polygons. Like even like now I kind of struggle to play Final Fantasy VII because of just the look of it.
Because you start to dismiss these older styles, and it doesn't have the same magic anymore, and you can't get around that problem, because once you've been exposed to something that's far superior, it is hard to go backwards. So definitely, I mean, anyone who's lucky enough to be in the position to be like never exposed to games, whether they're a kid or an adult, like go straight to the old stuff and do the journey from beginning to end instead of the other way around, because
feel the beauty and the magic of that old Mario and those slow ass controls. And that's only just gonna make how smooth the next one feels so much better by comparison. And it only goes up, really. You might have a couple dips back down, but
I have enjoyed on the Nintendo Switch that they've re-released quite a lot of older games. Not always super old, but some, for example, the BioShock trilogy I got at a good price, and I've been going through those.
I'm not familiar because I haven't allowed myself to get a new Nintendo system for years and years and years and years, because I never finished Twilight Princess. I'm not allowed to get a new Zelda game until I finish Twilight Princess. I'm not allowed to get a new console until I have a game that I want on it. The only game I want on the Switch is Breath of the Wild. I'm not allowed to play that game until I finish Twilight Princess. So my most recent Nintendo console is an original Wii.
I've never finished the Zelda game. I've enjoyed many, but I've never finished one. I don't know why. I always get stuck towards the end. And it was the same now with Breath of the Wild. I'm stuck on the last, what the hell is his name?
Ganondorf? What's his
Ganon,
name called? This version?
The final Ganon. I don't remember his name. Maybe that's
Ganon final form.
Something like that. Anyway, I'm stuck there, and I'll probably never do it because I've tried to beat this dude like 50 times or something. I've had enough. I'm bored now, and I know that once I beat it, the game's over anyway. So it's like,
you could go watch the ending on YouTube or something if you need to. But what I was going to say was that because I don't have a Switch, I don't know, does Nintendo have a system like the PSN? Because with the Wii, they had that like really limited capacity, but you could get games, like some retro games. Like I have my SNES Mario and a few of those on there, but do they actually have a proper like retro arcade system?
They
for
do,
Nintendo?
That's so when you subscribe to their online service, which is like 25 euros a year, something like that, you get access to the NES and SNES games, and then if you upgrade that a little bit, and it's something like 50 euros, I can't remember exactly, it's quite a jump, then you can have N64 games and Mega Drive games. So there's like a Sega one as well, which is interesting.
That's
And
kind of funny to imagine Sega games being played on a Nintendo system. That's like in the 90s, that would have been sacrilege.
Yeah, it would. But here we are, you know. Sega doesn't have a console anymore.
Yeah.
Since a really
Microsoft
long time
kind of
ago.
came around.
Yeah. What was their last one? The Dreamcast, maybe.
Yeah.
That was a huge flop.
That has like some deep cult followings, I
It
think.
does, yeah, and it's scary. Like obsessed people.
Yeah.
But there must be something great about it.
I had a Dreamcast. Someone gave me their Dreamcast at some point. I never used it, and I think I gifted it onwards to another friend. Should actually ask that friend if he still has it, if he ever used it.
Yeah, I believe there was, I don't remember now the titles, but I know that some people quote the same, maybe 3 or 4 titles that are like legendary games. But I never had a Dreamcast. I remember one of my friends had one, and I wasn't terribly impressed. And before that, they had the Saturn, which was like their version of the PlayStation, more or less like 32-bit system, and that was pretty much a failure as well. It didn't really. That was the beginning of the end for Sega, I think.
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, now that I think about it, Sonic has been on the Nintendo for quite a while now. So
yeah, they've had these like more modern variations of Sonic. So now you can get all the like retro Sega stuff, at least Mega Drive. I think nothing beyond that, but they're pretty cool, you know.
Yeah. Well, I know like Rare was originally, I think, Nintendo exclusive, but nowadays that's on like Microsoft or something. It's Xbox, because I was a big fan of Banjo-Kazooie, for example, back in the day, and I remember like having to like I was desperately searching for it so I could replay it as an adult, and I think I ended up finding it on like the Xbox library or something, and so I did get to replay it, but I was always like, why is this Xbox? Xbox was the bro console, not the fun kids games console. Why? I guess I don't even know as Rare. Do they exist anymore? Did they get like bought out by someone or absorbed or something?
These things change so much. But I totally agree that, well, I guess everyone does. Nintendo is kind of the fun, like a bit kiddie, but maybe just for like light-hearted games.
Yeah.
And honestly, at this point in my life, that's exactly what I want, because I don't have like hours and hours to get deep into stories.
Yeah.
And even though I'd love to do that, they end like if I try to have that experience again, it can be weeks before I get back to the game. And I don't remember what's going on anymore. And it's like a stupid situation to be in. So Nintendo offers me this kind of quick buzz.
Yeah.
And it's just fun. And honestly, I think I went my whole life wanting to have a Nintendo system. And I never actually had my own until the Switch. It's the first Nintendo system that's actually mine. I'm not playing at a friend's house. So
nice.
Yeah, it was like you know, when I got the box, I looked at it like a kid again.
Just little sparks coming out of your eyes.
Yeah, exactly that. You know, it was a cool experience, and I wouldn't have felt like that with a PlayStation. It would have just been like
console, cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, another console, shove it next to the TV.
Yeah,
the Nintendo, it was like a whole thing.
Yeah,
I was excited.
That's. I still really distinctly remember getting my Nintendo 64 for Christmas, because before that, I was always playing my brother's consoles. They're my brother's games. This is the first console that was mine, and it was a big deal. But I remember playing The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time at my cousin's place and thinking like, whoa, this is way too big for me. Like, I can't even. Holy crap. And fast forward a few years later, I have played through this game. I have drawn everything in the manual in my art book. I have gotten into Majora's Mask. I've drawn almost everything from that manual, including the hard stuff like the horse. Oh, man. And then when I ran out of that, that's when like the true geek in me sprung to life. and this is probably like, I don't even know like how far away was this from the discovery of Iron Maiden as well. They could have been within a couple years of each other. But I started drawing original characters, and I started making my own story, which ended up being, and I think I still have all of this somewhere. I did a prequel to Ocarina of Time. Original story, original characters. Like, I think the main characters were like twins, and the girl would have been Link's mom. And I had been really obsessed with King's Quest 6, so I like added point and click mechanics into this Zelda game, and I had designed puzzles, I had designed maps, I had designed temples, I had done it all in the style of Legend of Zelda. And then when I finally got the idea around the age 15 for an original story, it got scrapped, and that is the origin story of how I became a fantasy writer, dating back to when I was about 13 and obsessed with Ocarina of Time.
That's cool.
So, yeah, then I started writing original stories, and then I think I wrote like 13 stories in that were like, basically they're my Final Fantasy. So I did a few years ago reread. I have completed one of these stories. The first one is written completely beginning to end, and then the second one and its sequel were written with a pen pal that I had from America. So I don't count that as me finishing something. She and I did that. But the first one is the only one of these 13 stories that I wrote to completion, and I thought, just as an adult, I'm gonna reread this, because this was like my first truly original creation, and I wanted to see where my influences came from. Because obviously, like, I knew I ripped off King's Quest 6. I knew I ripped off Final Fantasy. I knew I ripped off like a lot of stuff. Final Fantasy 9 most heavily, I would say, but because that was my favorite. But I was surprised by the deep cuts that I found in there of my own nerdiness. Like, there was a Star Wars reference that I didn't remember. There was a Smurfs reference that I didn't remember. Like, there was, oh man, there's just so many things in there. I definitely ripped off a scene from Final Fantasy VI, because I remember seeing it when it was Final Fantasy III on the SNES, and my brother played it, and my mind was just so shattered by this scene and how cool it was. And I was just, oh man, it's so magical and mystical, and oh my god, oh, so cool. And I had to include it in my own story. And so, like, I think there exists now a version of this document that I've commented on what I ripped off through it. And it was really fun to look back on something I wrote like 20 years ago and see what my inspiration was back then, because some of it really surprised me.
Yeah, actually, that's funny. I just said yesterday or a couple of days ago, I was looking through some notes that I had stashed away, and I found actually a song that I was working on, I think 20 plus years ago, the original notes of it, and I had forgotten those words, and it was so interesting to kind of journey back to my mind then, because I wouldn't write the same these days. Like, you change so much as a creative. I think it's like something you're constantly developing, and you do these things, and you'll never go back to that moment. Whatever you write in that second, it's like unique. You couldn't do it tomorrow. It's just, it's so cool when you come back to these years later and try to think, like, what was I even thinking in that moment? Like, what led to me putting that there in that form? It's really interesting. And sometimes I read something from myself and actually don't even understand what I wrote, like, especially with the lyrics, because they can be a bit abstract or whatever, and I might look at it and think, actually, I don't even get it anymore. I'm sure I had an idea then, but what was it?
I was really impressed too, because I had designed it really to be like a Final Fantasy game. And Final Fantasy games, like, especially like the older ones like 6, didn't have like super hardcore heavy stories. So it was really like, we have some people hanging out, and then they go somewhere and do something, and then probably something happens. So like first it's kind of these elves who then they go to the next town over, and they meet their hobbit friend, but there's like a monster in the well. So they have to beat the boss before their friend will join their party and come help them.
Yeah.
And then it was like the first part of the story is them kind of building the party, but they're trying to go rescue this princess from the tower. Of course, this was a deeply emo metaphor for my like first love. Okay. Because we lived on opposite provinces. So like this was all like the elves were like my boyfriend and his best friend, and the hobbit was their friend who was like a short Asian guy, so he always got like teased for being short, so he ended up being the hobbit. I don't know if that was offensive. I'm sorry if it was. I don't think it was. I think he took it in good stride because all of his friends were taller, so they were the elves and he was the hobbit. But he could have been a dwarf. I think I thought hobbits were cooler at that point.
Well,
I always got called a hobbit because I was always tiny. So but yeah, I was kind of like impressed. I was like, honestly, like maybe I'm less impressed with the Final Fantasy games because this thing I wrote when I was 15 holds up to them. Yeah. But it's definitely like to the point of plagiarism or really damn close to it at times, of like scenes that were ripped off of something else. So like there's one character that was basically like Yoda and a Smurf combined. It was just like, it was a little cute dude who was about this big, and he was like this wise little old cute sage. Yeah. And I was like, I didn't realize that Star Wars had that much of an effect on me. I was always more of a swords over lasers person. So but sure enough, there's a little Yoda in that story. Yeah, well, and he talks exactly like Yoda. Yeah. So he doesn't look like Yoda, but he absolutely talks like him.
Who can resist Yoda? I don't think there's anyone.
You know, Ewoks, take them or leave them, but Yoda, no, everyone loves Yoda.
Yeah, it's amazing. My son has watched all of the Star Wars movies, and he loves Yoda. You know, that's the one that he picked out from that whole experience. And of course, now when Baby Yoda is a thing as well. Ooh. So it's kind of gone to that. But
excellent. I have not seen The Mandalorian yet, but
me neither.
Everyone says it's
thought about starting it many times and then think again, because I think at least for me, I want to be in a certain state of mind and I want to give attention to that.
I think we have like a group of friends. It's basically like another couple of friends of ours that I can't get that sentence to sound right. Friends of ours who are also another couple. Yeah. We go to their place to watch sci-fi shows sometimes because my friend's favorite show of all time is Battlestar Galactica, the remake. And so he wanted to share that with us. We hadn't seen it. And then so I wanted to share Firefly because I haven't watched a whole lot of sci-fi, but I did really enjoy Firefly, and they hadn't seen that. And so now my partner wants us to watch The Mandalorian because that's the sci-fi series that he's watched most recently that he thought was amazing. So, and I've heard pretty universally that that's the only thing done in the Star Wars universe in recent years that holds up to the original trilogy. Like even Rogue One, which was enjoyable, doesn't leave such an impact, I feel like. But apparently The Mandalorian was like really good. Like again, like other people I've had on the podcast have said like they cried in the end, and I've only had men on my podcast so far, so significant, even if it shouldn't be.
What do you personally think is the charm of the original trilogy?
Honestly, like it's hard to say. Like it's possibly just how original it was. It was maybe I'm one of those people who really I get like that little like nerd salt in my wound, because for me, fantasy and science fiction is swords and guns. Basically, that's the distinction. And then you have the people nowadays who like to distinguish between science fiction and science fantasy. So science fiction is like Star Trek, which is based off technological advancement. So Star Wars is fantasy because it's fantasy in space. Sure. Basically. Yeah. I get it. It's still sci-fi to me. But I think like perhaps that's part of it, is that it was science fiction, this like technological, like this is what the world could be in the future if technology went like continues. Whereas Star Wars was like Jedi and Sith and like magic, you know, space magic and stuff like that. And I don't know if there was a lot of that before. So you were getting this kind of like hero's quest in space with laser beams and monsters and stuff. So, but it had so much personality too.
It does have a lot of personality.
And that's what, for example, the most recent trilogy lacked, I think, was it kind of started okay, but it really had no personality. It relied too hard on surprises and withholding secrets. But the thing about the original trilogy, like, no one was wondering who Luke's father was. Everyone knew who Luke's father was. What was the surprise was that Darth Vader was Anakin Skywalker. That was the big surprise. So, like, Star Wars wasn't about mysterious reveals, like this J.J. Abrams Lost stuff. Like, they're fun, but when the reveal is revealed, where's the rewatch value if you don't have beloved characters? And really, Kylo Ren, really, just what's with the like whiny emo bad guys these days?
Sure,
like, So, like, Darth Vader was so cool and evil and mysterious, and Kylo Ren was like, I have daddy issues.
Like, I get that. There's a lot of rewatch value in those first three.
And like, if you look at these characters, like, describe their personalities to me. Rey or the dudes whose names I literally don't remember. I think there was one called Finn.
Finn. Yeah, that's that John Boyega.
Yeah.
I think.
Like.
Yeah, I know what you mean. They're a bit like bland. They're not strong characters. But I like those movies. But at the same time, as a trilogy, it's not particularly strong. There's like the episode 7, 8, 9. I don't know. I'm not that. I don't feel that strongly about the original ones either. I do love them. They're great movies. And actually, these episode 1, 2, and 3 that came out in between, that people really seem to hate. I liked them a lot, but they don't work as individual movies, and that was a bit strange. I felt that I need to watch all three. If I'm gonna watch that, I need to watch all three. And it somehow is like a slow burner. It kind of works, and the end is just like magic. Whereas with the episode 4, 5, and 6, I could watch those individually anytime. They're just great individual movies, or as a trilogy, whatever. These more modern ones, to be honest, maybe it's for the reason that you said the characters are not really lovable or whatever. I could take or leave those.
Yeah. I think there's still, like, I don't think the storytelling in the second trilogy, the 1, 2, and 3, was particularly good. You know, like, because the one thing that trilogy should have focused on, and absolutely did not develop in any way, shape, or form, was the relationship between Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Because that was the point of that story. Obi-Wan Kenobi should have been the main character of that series. And in The Phantom Menace, you don't even know who the main character is. So that was Obi-Wan Kenobi's story. And there's a dude on YouTube who has kind of like taken a little bit and then like elaborated and kind of made better versions of these movies, and I'll pitch him till the ends of time for having done a better job of this. But like, what I loved was his critique of like just why these movies flopped. And so when he redoes it, he takes all of this into consideration, and he, like, in his versions of these, he develops that relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan. So like, those are my headcanon of the original trilogy. But in the same way that my friend before mentioned, like, I'm okay with the bad original trilogy existing because it gave me the opportunity to see this like nice version that this other guy came up with. But yeah, this like because in the original trilogy, you know, Obi-Wan Kenobi makes such a big deal out of what a great guy Anakin Skywalker was. Hayden Christian Anderson just portrays him as a whiny, unlikable little bitch like the entire time. And there's just almost in the same as like Galadriel from Rings of Power. I find him so unlikable.
So there's a disconnect there.
There's a huge disconnect. And then like a lot of the stuff, like for example, again, this is part of this dude's critique, but he says that when you give too much at the end, which they did in the third movie, like naming Luke and Leia, for example, you've thus destroyed the continuity if you were to choose to watch these movies in chronological order. Now that big reveal in episode 5 doesn't matter. You already knew that Darth Vader was Anakin Skywalker.
That's true. Never thought of that. Yeah, it wasn't maybe carefully done in that sense. Yeah.
I've heard prior to like the newest trilogy, I've heard there is like an order to watching the movies that somehow makes it better, but you can't watch them chronologically. And I should look this up and try it sometime, because it's something like you have to start with like A New Hope, then you have to flash back to like the Phantom Menace or something, and then you like maybe even watch the next one, and then you go back to The Empire Strikes Back, then you go back to the other one. Okay. Now that you know that Darth Vader is his father, and then you finish the series or something, and then it's kind of better. But I wouldn't know which the order actually is, but
it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been like I wouldn't call myself a Star Wars geek in any sense.
Me neither.
But I do love those movies. And I'm really interested to find out new ways to watch them and to experience the story, because it's a really cool story.
Yeah, I'd say like I was never like a big Star Wars geek myself either. Like I watched the movies, I liked the movies, appreciated the movies. I watched them more than once. But it was never like a fixation for me. Again, because I think I don't know if it's because like my family are hunters or something like that. Which is weird on its own, because, you know, they do still use guns, but somehow I always just seem to have appreciated physical combat over laser beams and guns. So for whatever reason, sci-fi never quite did it for me, because I think I always liked the beauty of like nature and fantasy. Again, because I was an outdoor kid technically. So I loved the beauty of nature, and fantasy was really intricately connected with nature, and I think space was too sterile for me. So if perhaps I had been introduced to space not with desert planet Tatooine, but with like lush jungle planet Wagadu or something, if it had been like some beautiful jungle setting, then I might have loved sci-fi a lot more. But I think I was really into like the nature and the trees, and like I like frolicked through the trees in the woods pretending I was Robin Hood from Disney when I was little a lot of the time. So I don't know, fantasy just always, like, I love ancient ruins and all that sort of thing. So fantasy was always very much more of a thing for me. But yeah, like Star Wars always, they were great stories, and they were interesting, and they were fun. So even if I wasn't a sci-fi geek, I really did like them. That said, I will absolutely vouch for Battlestar Galactica 2004. Oh man, that show is what Game of Thrones should have been, but set in space.
Okay, I haven't seen it. Maybe I need to.
Well, if the concept of Game of Thrones wherein like every character could be the good guy or the bad guy based on the circumstances, based on who they are, that show was absolutely spectacular. Like none I've ever seen. And the ending, I would cut the final scene from. I think that's the American ending that Americans need. It really goes into that, like, they really, really, really focused on the characters. And they also really focused on that theme of AI. And I was just astounded at how far ahead of their time they were with this, because I haven't watched the original. I don't care. It sounded really cheesy when after watching the remake, I thought, should I watch the original? And then I was kind of reading about it. I was like, I don't think so. But one of those things where you can't go back. Like
Yeah,
if I'd watched
yeah.
the original first, it would have been
Yeah.
okay, but no.
Yeah,
So
not possible anymore.
yeah, like go back to the all male cast of like, and the bad guy sounded, I don't know how he portrayed on screen, but he sounded silly when I read about it. He didn't sound scary, he sounded silly. Whereas this was very much like a story of like AI versus humanity. And like they get really deep into like what does it mean to be a human, because they are, apart from the fact that they are synthesized 100% the same as humans, and like going into that like level of like hate and things like that is absolutely spectacular. And you can feel, you're never like in a scene being like, why the fuck would that guy do that? You're always looking at it and being like, fuck, that's, oh, brutal.
Yeah.
You always get why the characters have done what they've done. I have a playlist on my YouTube channel that's like most meaningful scenes from anything I've ever seen. There's a court trial, and I won't spoil it in any ways, but the defense scene from that will almost 100% of the time make me cry, because it's one of the most true things I've ever seen portrayed in anything. It's just like, without giving any context, you see like a tidal wave of hate that society is trying to pin on a single person. And this one guy just stands up and says, no, this is not justice. This is hate. And it's beautiful. I'll start crying if I talk about it even more, probably, because it's amazing.
And much needed in this kind of world. Yeah.
Granted, like, I think was at the end of season 2 or maybe the end of season 3. I think it was season 2. They took, like, they made a really weird choice. And when season 3 started, I was like, what have you done to this show? It was fine. Like, give it an episode or two and it smooths right out and it's great.
Yeah.
But like the ending is not like spectacular, but it's what it needs to be, I think. And I probably rank that a sci-fi show easily in like top shows I've ever seen, for sure.
Okay. Hey, I had something I wanted to show you. Another thing. This is going in a completely different direction. This is cute, by the way. This is from An Antenna. I don't know if you remember this character.
I do recognize him a little bit.
That was made by a friend of mine. I have a very small game in here. So I like board games and things. I wonder if I can feel like it's so tiny. Hey, this is cool.
Oh my god. Original Game Boy.
Yeah.
I don't think I have my original Game Boy anymore. I do have my original SP though, that was designed like an original NES controller. I think it's broken. I think the battery's dead, but it or like it won't charge, it won't turn on anymore. But the casing was always my favorite, the like classic controller design.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I like those a lot too. This has totally disappeared.
Down in the bottom.
Yeah.
Bowels of your bag of holding.
I know that I put it here. Why did I put it in there? 1 second. So, yeah, I think I can figure it in. Yes, this is something kind of special. This is a little game from Britain, and it's a cricket game.
Say what?
I mean, how much do you understand about cricket?
A little.
A little.
I know that there's a bat and a post, and that, was it Australia? Did something very silly one year.
Really?
Where they like didn't, was it, you normally throw overhand?
Yes.
And they threw it underhand and it was a big thing.
Or did they? I didn't know about that.
I think, I don't remember, was it Australia or New Zealand, but or maybe it was them versus each other. I'm not sure, but it was like a whole kerfuffle. And I had a linguistics teacher in university who is from New Zealand, and this was something we learned in New Zealand English.
Sounds like something that might happen. Someone breaking the rules.
Yeah, like went down in history as like the shittiest win anyone's ever had in cricket or something like that.
Yeah, maybe it's been like blocked as a rule now.
Yeah.
So this I believe belonged to my great grandfather, and you used to be able to buy these in the train stations in Britain a long time ago. So I don't know exactly how old this is, but I'm guessing maybe around 100 years ish.
Damn.
And it's a really simple game called How's That, which is like if you bowl someone out in cricket, you might say how's that? Like,
Okay.
is he out? Is she out? And so this is something that maybe some Brits back in the day, like gaming geeks, maybe were playing this on the trains. And there's like even the original rules in here.
Oh, wild.
Which are, I don't know, is that blood or rust?
Well, they're both.
Maybe it got a bit rough one day. But yeah, it's crazy, this thing. I've had this since I was a kid. And this is like one of the first games in a way that I think I ever owned. And I was trusted by my family to keep this.
Incredible.
Very old, now kind of heirloom.
Yeah.
So this is like really, for me, something special.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's really vintage. And
Yeah,
it's
I
in
think
such
so.
good condition.
Yeah, because I mean, this is in the same condition it was when it was handed to me as a kid.
Yeah.
I played it a few times, but I mean, to be honest, it's not the best game. It's not that exciting. I mean, it's too simple.
What's like those paddle games that you had back in the day? I don't know if there was even one on Game Boy where you bounce the ball and you try and get rid of all the bricks. I remember loving that as a kid, so we got it on the like PS4 or something, and I played it for like an hour, and I was like, so boring. Why did we spend money on this? I played this enough as a child. It's the most unstimulating game of all time.
Yeah, occasionally they're a bit of a fail, aren't they? Like simplicity can be great, but then again, there is a limit sometimes.
I think we've been at this for quite a while. Is there anything particularly geeky that we haven't gotten into that you wanted to?
I don't know. I think that we've covered quite a lot of things, haven't we?
We didn't get into Iron Maiden as much as I expected us to, but that's fine.
That's
we talked about.
That's cool. Hey, I wanted to give you something, which is a little kind of history of my musical stuff. There is a vinyl for you. If you would like to have, of course, you don't need to take them.
Look at this artwork. Oh my God. It's incredible.
And so that's the first Liquidation EP from Frozen Factory, which is a suspiciously long 8-track EP.
Wait a minute.
8 tracks, yes.
Incredible.
Although 2 of them are like an intro and outro. But it's under half an hour, so in that sense, it can be an EP. Because if you look up officially what is an EP, it can be a record that's less than 30 minutes, or with 4 to 6 tracks or something like that.
I should do another episode of this where someone teaches me all of like tech geekery.
Yeah. I would imagine a lot of people would say this is not a real EP, but you know what? Whatever. If we decide it's an EP, it's an EP. And here's our latest album on CD.
This is a fantastic album. I don't know what genre it is. You should absolutely check it out.
Yeah, you can decide after you listen to it.
Let us know. Tell us what genre you think this is.
And this is a prog metal album I made some years ago. It's a concept called The Life of Spice. And it was the beginning of a very interesting story, but we kind of disbanded after that. But there is some rumors going around that something might happen, and the follow-up stories to this may actually be made.
This looks like it has a story to it.
It certainly does have a story. Yeah, it's
a wizard and an apple. I see a yin yang-ish kind of thing. This is actually very cool artwork because the more I look at it, the more there is I'm seeing.
Yeah, so there's a story to that on the cover there you can see the father of a set of brothers, and in the background there's a lady who's kind of trapped in the sky.
Hmm.
So the story starts that there's a missing mother, and these boys and their father and their sister are going to her funeral. Actually, it's hard for me to remember because the story is rather complicated, I'm sorry to say, and it was some years ago, but they're traveling on a train through India towards what is now Pakistan, but was then still part of the same country. And it's kind of a murder mystery in a way. But then there's a twist. So murder mystery turns into something else at some point.
Excellent.
And then I have for you this CD, which you may have already, I don't know.
I don't believe this I do. I think I have like a really old demo from back when Mark was the singer.
Okay,
So
well,
I don't think I have anything from the post-Mark era.
you can complete your collection. So
Incredible.
that's Eon Antenna.
Rare finds in Finland. This is very cool.
Yeah, there's not many of those around, and that's brand new. Well, not brand new. It was printed in 2012, but it's never been out of the box. So you got a brand new one.
Now this is incredible because I've met all of these guys. I forgot almost all of their names, so it was great. I could
Yeah,
check
now
what
you
were their
can
names.
check
But
whenever you
it's
like.
incredible. Thank you so much, and
You're welcome.
thank you for taking the time to do this. I know it's not a short thing to do. I know I was a little iffy when getting here, but thank you so much. This is really fun.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you, everyone else who's listening today.